So, settling into your comfortable seat, you can have your legs crisscrossed. You can have them out if that's more comfortable for you. Do what feels good in your body. Really grounding into your sit bones, extending in the spine and lengthening through the crown of the head. Give yourself some time here to settle in. Start to notice your breath, not changing it, but just noticing. Is it long? Is it short? Is it smooth? Is it ragged? Today we'll continue the journey through the story behind the poses. So we'll focus on fish and Lord of the Fishes today as we go through these poses later in the practice. And you can keep your eyes closed if that feels good to you. But go ahead and bring your chin towards your chest. Let your head hang here for a moment, breathing in, breathing out. Letting your head hang, really lengthening in the back of the neck and in the top of the upper back. And then with your next inhale, lift your chin to come towards your ceiling. And exhale, chin back to chest. Inhale, chin to the ceiling. Exhale, chin to chest. Inhale up and exhale down. And staying here. And then inhale, bring your left ear to left shoulder. And exhale, chin to chest, and then over to the right shoulder. And with the flow of your own breath, going from side to side, ear close to shoulder. And then the next time that you find your left ear close to your left shoulder, pause there. First, bring your fingertips down to the floor as far away as you can from yourself as you can reach. And then bring your left hand up to your right ear and just gently holding on to your head, just giving a little tiny bit of pressure. Opening up, feeling this all down the right side of your neck, all the way down into your arm. And then bring your left hand down to the floor. Bring your right arm up and then right ear towards right shoulder. Reaching away with that left hand on the floor. And with each inhale, lengthen in the spine, get a little bit taller. And exhale, release. And then letting go, bring your hands to your knees. And on your inhale, bring your belly forward as you're arching your back like you're coming to cow pose. Look up towards the sky. And then exhale, round the spine, holding onto your knees and just really rounding. You can feel the stretch in the shoulders here, but letting your eyes look down at your thighs. Inhale back into our seated cow, dropping the belly forward, looking up. And then exhaling back to our seated cat. And then inhale forward. And then exhale, rounding the spine. And then come back to center, sitting up nice and tall. And then come over to the side as far as you can, holding onto your knees. And then we'll go around in a big circle. So coming down as far as you can in the front, leaning over to the right side, and then back and to the side. And just moving around in a big circle. You could almost think of this as kind of a weebles wobble, but they don't fall down, kind of a maneuver. And then go the opposite direction. Just waking up our hips and our low back. Just coming as far as feels comfortable in your body. And then come back to center, sit up nice and tall. Bring the top of your right wrist into the inside of your right knee, and then open up, twisting, but not so far, just on the diagonal, reaching to the floor on the diagonal here. We will do lots of twists today as we move towards Lord of the Fishes, but we just want to start small. And then come back to center. Bring left wrist inside left knee, and then twisting just to the diagonal. With each inhale, always getting a little bit taller in the spine. And with each exhale, releasing, getting a little more comfortable. And then come back to center. So we'll use our prop for the first time in this practice. And if you can fold it up so that it's just a few inches high, maybe even a little bit higher, maybe 3 or 4. And so it is going to be underneath your shoulder blades. So on your mat, you should have enough room for your head. So once you have that set up, you can come down gently onto your back, extending your legs long. And then when your head comes back, of course, it's going to be more the top of your head, or maybe the where you might have your cowlick on your head is on the floor, and you're looking at the wall behind you. Now your arms can be either alongside your hips and your thighs, or you can just let them be out to a T. So see what feels more comfortable in your body. This is supported fish pose. And we'll stay here actually for a couple of minutes. And I'll at least start the story of the fish pose. So most of the poses have a background in Hindu mythology, and I don't claim to be an expert, but I've been reading about them, and I think it's really fun to think about where these poses may have come from. So Shiva, Lord Shiva, he's the Lord of the universe in Hindu mythology. He came down from the mountain from a really long meditation, and of course, his beloved, named Parvati, knew that he'd be coming down, so she was preparing a picnic for him. And when he came down, he wanted to share with her that he had discovered the most wondrous thing, and that was that the union between the self and the divine could be found through yoga. Such a surprise. And he was going on and on. And meanwhile, Parvati just continued preparing the picnic, and he was getting a little angry because she didn't seem to be paying a lot of attention to him. Why aren't you listening to me? He said. And as it turned out, Parvati already knew all about yoga. She'd been practicing for years, and she was a little surprised that her beloved Shiva, Lord of the universe, was not so familiar. But yet she was a wise partner, and she said, "Of course I'm listening. Please continue." Now go ahead and lift your head and just roll yourself over to the side so that you can move your blanket out of the way. And then come back down onto your back and bring your right knee into your chest. We're starting nice and slow and gentle today. And then extend your right leg. So the sole of your right foot is towards the ceiling, and clasp your hands behind your right thigh. If you're particularly flexible, maybe you clasp your hands behind your calf, or maybe you hold on to your foot, but do whatever feels best in your body. And start to point and flex your right foot. Meanwhile, just gently letting that right leg continue to come closer. Now, if it feels better to bend a little in the leg, feel free to do that. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight. As long as you're feeling a sensation of stretching in that back of that thigh and the hamstring, then you're doing it. And that's your pose. And start to roll your ankle in one direction. And then in the other. And then bring the knee back into the chest, giving it a little squeeze. So letting your leg come down. And then extend your right leg long. Just notice how it might feel a little longer than your left leg. And we'll come to the other side. So bring your left knee into the chest. Give it a nice squeeze. And then lengthen that left leg so that the sole of your foot is coming towards the ceiling, holding on behind your thigh or wherever is appropriate for you. If it helps, you can always bend the opposite knee as well. So do what feels comfortable. So back to our story, while Parvati is only paying a little bit of attention, there was a fish in the river nearby who heard Lord Shiva speaking and said, "Oh my goodness, Lord Shiva is speaking. It must be important. I'm going to listen in." Now go ahead and point and flex your foot. And so the fish listens in as Shiva talks about the value of meditation and what that feels like, and all of the different aspects of yoga around the ethics and all the different phases of going through meditation. Now start to circle your ankle. And instantaneously, the fish, who's named Matsya, is enlightened. It's a miracle. And the Sanskrit word for fish is Matsya. And so that pose that we were doing, the supported fish pose, is called Matsyasana. Now bring your foot down, bring your knee into your chest, give it a nice squeeze. And then bring your right knee into the chest also, and give both knees a nice squeeze into your body. And then start to roll up so that you come to seated. And maybe you cross your legs and just keep coming forward so that you'll be on hands and knees. If it's not cushy where you are, put your blanket under your knees so that you have plenty of cushion there. And then spread your knees nice and wide. Bring your toes together, coming to child's pose. So your seat comes towards your feet. Hands come forward, forehead comes to the floor. If your forehead isn't on the floor, then stack your hands and let your forehead rest on your hands. So either flat hands, or you can make fists out of your hands, but we want to definitely have your forehead touching. It's so relaxing. And child's pose is a place that you can come back to at any time in the practice if what we're doing doesn't suit you in any way, or if you just need a little rest. And then just one other variation that you can do for child's pose is if your knees don't appreciate this level of flexion and you need them to not be quite so bent, you can always keep maybe your knees will be a little closer together, and keep your knees under your hips and just reaching forward. More of a puppy pose, as we call it, or heart pose. But both of these are good resting poses. Now push yourself back up towards your tabletop, and then drop your elbows onto the floor underneath your shoulders. This is called polar bear pose. And with your inhale, drop your belly and lift your tail. And with your exhale, tuck your tail and round your low back. This is a little bit like a cat-cow, but we're not really doing anything with our upper back. So inhaling, lift the tail, drop the belly. Exhale, round in the spine, tuck the tail. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Now, clasp your hands. They're still on the floor, but bringing them together and clasp them. And you can start to rock yourself forward and back. So bringing your chin over your clasped hands, and then pushing all the way back as if you're going towards a child's pose. Maybe not all the way there. And just going back and forth with your own rhythm of your breath. Kind of juicing up the hips and the shoulders. If you would like something more, we can come to dolphin pose. So your choice, continuing with this polar bear child's pose, or tuck the toes, and then as you're coming forward, bring your knees off the floor, bring your hips up to the sky. It's like a downward dog, but from your forearms. Really dropping the belly, lifting the tail. And then bring your knees down, push back toward a child's. And you can do this with your breath. So inhaling to dolphin, exhaling to child's. And whenever you're done with this little flow, then just come to child's pose. And then separate your hands, put them on the floor, palms down, and then shimmy your legs back behind you and come to your belly. Your elbows are under your shoulders, Sphinx pose. Press your hips into the floor. Pull your elbows back and towards your body. Press the tops of your feet into the floor. Notice how that changes what you feel in your low back and your mid back. Now bring your forehead to the floor. Bring your hands back alongside your body. And then on your next inhale, lift your heart, lift your hands, lift your feet into locust pose. And then exhale all the way down. Inhale, heart, hands, feet all come up. Exhale down. Inhale up. Try to bring the feet closer together. Exhale down. Last one. Inhale up. Exhale down. And bring your hands on either side below your shoulders and push yourself back up to tabletop. And then we'll come to heart pose or puppy pose. So start to walk your hands forward, leaving your hips up above your knees. And then finally bringing forehead to the floor. But keep creeping your hands forward so that you get a good stretch in the shoulders. Still breathing. And then start to slowly walk one hand back and the other. And bring your hands all the way just in front of your knees and tuck your toes. And then push your hips up into the air. We'll stay in this forward fold. Grab your opposite elbows and let your head hang heavy. Nod your head yes. Shake your head no. And then bring your feet out 45 degrees, maybe one foot and then the other. And let yourself dangle here and notice how that changes the sensation of the stretch behind your thighs. And then bring your feet in so that your toes are in towards each other. And notice how that changes the stretch. Let your weight come towards your toes. And then bring your feet so they are parallel once again. And inhale, start to roll yourself up. Bring your arms all the way around and up to the sky. And exhale, hands to your heart. Inhale your arms up. And then exhale, bring your hands behind your back. If you can, clasp your hands. If not, just bring your hands back behind you. Let your heart shine up to your ceiling. Nice big inhale here. And on your exhale, hinge at the hips forward, coming all the way into a forward fold. Let your hands come up towards the sky. Let your head come towards the floor. Now bring your hands back to your tail and unclasp them. Bring them towards the floor. Bend your knees so that your fingertips can reach the floor. Bring your feet out 45 degrees like we did earlier. Bring your elbows to the inside of your knees and just bend your knees as much as is comfortable for you. So maybe your yogi squat is going to be here, up a little higher, but maybe you can let your hips drop down further. You can be on your heels or you can be on your toes, whichever works in your body. Nice. Pushing against your knees, no matter where you are, just opening up in the hips. And then bring your hands down to the floor and straighten your legs, bringing your hips back up, parallel your feet. Inhale all the way up to standing, bring your arms up and around. Exhale to your heart. Now inhale your arms up to the sky, really reach and stretch. Exhale, bring your hands behind you and clasp them, but this time put the other thumb on top, the one that feels awkward because you never do it that way. Shine your heart towards your ceiling. Big inhale here. Exhale, forward fold, and hands come up towards the ceiling, head towards the floor. And bring your hands back to your tail and unclasp, reach towards the floor, bend your knees. Bring your feet out 45 degrees. Elbows to knees, coming back to your yogi squat, wherever it is for you. Maybe bringing your thumbs into your heart space, pushing against your sternum. And then bring your hands to the floor and push your hips back up to the sky. Parallel your feet and inhale your way all the way back up to standing. And exhale, hands to your heart. Bring your hands to your hips and then step forward with your right foot, a nice big long step. You'll be on the toes of your left foot. Coming into a lunge here, let your hips drop and sweep your arms up above you. Really looking for a nice stretch in the front of the left quadricep, the left thigh. Maybe even giving a little bit of a back bend here, letting your heart shine up to the ceiling. And then sweep your hands back down, and behind you, clasp your hands, shine your heart, and breathe. This is a bit of a balance pose. And unclasp your hands, bring your hands to your hips. Step your back foot in about maybe 6 inches, about the length of your foot or a little more. Let both of your hips be facing forward. So bring your left hip forward, pull the right one back. Lengthen in the spine, and then hinge at the hips forward. Now you can stay here with hands on hips if you want a little work in your core. Keep pulling that right hip back so that you feel the stretch in your right hamstring. Or you can also hold on to your right shin, or maybe even put hands to floor. Pick your adventure. With each inhale, always extending in your spine. With each exhale, letting yourself release a little further into the stretch. And then bring your hands back to your waist and come all the way back up to standing. And step your left foot forward to meet the right. Sweep your arms up and bend your knees, coming to chair pose. And your chair can be as tall as a bar stool or as low as a footstool, you choose. But breathing here, reaching into your fingertips. Press your toes into the floor. Now bring your hands to your heart. We're coming to warrior 3. So step your left foot back. Maybe this is your pose and you use that left foot as kind of a kickstand, just letting it up off the floor a little. But if you feel comfortable, you can bring your left leg to parallel with the floor, and your hands can stay either at your heart. They can reach back behind you in line with your hips, or they can be on the floor. Really pushing through that left heel. Breathing here, and if you fall out, just come back. And then let your left foot come back to the floor, come up to standing. And then inhale your arms up and around. Exhale forward, all the way to forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, come all the way back up. Arms come around. Exhale to your heart. Then bring your hands to your hips. Step your left foot back. Actually, your right foot back, sorry. The opposite side of what you just did. Landing on the toes, letting your hips drop. Sweep your arms up overhead. Breathing here, getting steady. Really pressing into all 4 corners of that left foot. And then sweep your arms behind you, clasp your hands, open up your heart. And then unclasp your hands, bring your hands back to your hips. Step your right foot forward about the length of your foot. Let your hips be facing forward. Lengthen in the spine and hinge forward at the hips, coming to pyramid pose. And either staying here with your hands or bringing them to shins, to your shin, or fingertips to the floor. Keep pulling that right hip forward as you push the left hip back. Really press into your toes. Notice how that changes how you feel in that left hamstring. Then bring your hands back to your hips. Inhale yourself all the way back up to standing. Step your right foot forward to meet the left. Sweep your hands back up to chair pose. Breathing here. And then hands to your heart. Step your right foot back, either using those toes as your kickstand for warrior three, or lifting the right leg up to be parallel to the floor or towards parallel. Push through that right heel as if you're standing on it. Let your arms be where you like, at your heart or alongside your body. And then bring your right foot back to meet the left. Inhale your arms up and overhead. Exhale, forward fold, hinge at the hips. Let your spine get long. Inhale, just halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. And then bring your left knee down to the floor and your right knee down to the floor. And we'll come to a nice comfortable seat. So maybe grabbing your blanket again so that you can sit at the edge of your blanket. Extend your legs long in front of you, really pushing through the heels, spreading through the toes. Press your hands down into the floor on either side of your hips, opening up in the heart space, lengthening in the spine. Now bring your right foot in to the inside of your left leg. Sweep your arms up and then hinge forward at the hips and let your hands come down onto your shin or your foot or wherever they land. With each inhale, extend in the spine. With each exhale, let yourself release into the stretch. And then push yourself all the way back up. And take your left foot and cross it over the right. And you can stay here. This is half Lord of the Fishes here. But you can also come to Lord of the Fishes. And the way that I do that is I lean back on my hands and just bend that beat, like maybe even go over to the side a little bit. Just bend that knee. It's not as hard as it looks. And then just hug your knee into your chest. maybe even with your elbow, and start to twist at the belly button. Start to twist there first, and then in the ribs, in the heart space, in the shoulders, and finally look over your left shoulder. So this pose is called Lord of the Fishes. So we met the fish earlier, Matsya, and Matsya was reincarnated into a half human, half fish. And so our torso in this pose represents the human part. And this strange entanglement of our legs is intended to be like the fish's tail. So use your imagination a little bit. Now come back to center. And if you are in full Lord of the Fishes, I have a fun little party trick for you. If not, just extend your legs long and we can come into it on the other side. But so here's the fun trick. So take your hand, so your left or your right leg is over your left, I believe. So bring your hands over to the left, place them on the floor, and shift your weight into your hands a little bit. You're coming up onto your feet, be on your toes, and just keep walking your hands to the right. Maybe let's stop when you get to right in front of yourself. We can just stop and do a little forward fold, stretch our legs here. And then keep walking your hands over to the left and bring your right knee down to the floor and your right hip down to the floor. And by magic, you are there on the other side. Sit up nice and tall and hug your knee into your chest. And then twisting from the belly into the ribs and the heart. And finally your shoulders and looking over your left shoulder. And breathing here. And then come back to center and untangle your legs. And we'll come onto our backs. But before you do come down onto your back, take your blanket and fold it up so that it's nice and tall. Maybe it's, almost as wide as your hand is when you open it up. And then just put it to the side. We'll use it in a second. And then if it feels good to you to roll out your spine, go ahead and do that. But otherwise, just roll down gently onto your back. Bend your knees, let the soles of your feet come to the floor. Pretty close to your glutes. Maybe your fingertips can just reach the back of your heels. And then press your feet and your palms into the floor. Inhale your hips up towards the ceiling. And then exhale all the way down, maybe one vertebra at a time. Press into the floor. Inhale, raise your hips. Exhale, come all the way down. Inhale, come all the way up. Exhale, down. And then inhale, come all the way up. Wiggle your shoulders a bit together if you can. Maybe you clasp your hands behind your back. Keep breathing here, pushing through the feet as if you're trying to, as if you're pushing away. So you're pushing away in your feet. And then imagine that you're trying to bring your heels closer to you, pushing your knees maybe towards your toes. And just back and forth a couple of times. And then unclasp your hands. Let yourself come all the way down. And then inhale up one more time. Grab your blanket and drag it underneath your sacrum. So your sacrum is that bony part of the back of your pelvis. So put it right under there. Let your hips rest on your blanket. And then you have a couple of choices here. You can either go for a little bit of a supported back bend, so by extending your feet long, or you can bring one knee into the chest and then the other, and just bring both feet up to the sky. And the blanket should give you enough support so that you don't have to hold on, so that your legs are just up there, nice and comfortable, a nice little inversion. Just reversing our blood flow a little here. So Matsya, of course, ends up being the first student of yoga, and Lord Shiva, the first teacher. And for thousands of years, that's how yoga was passed down. It was an oral tradition until things started getting written down just around the beginning of the Common Era, just before that. And then bring your knees into your chest. And then one foot at a time, bring the soles of your feet to the floor. Inhale and lift your hips and move your blanket off to the side. And then bring your sacrum back down to the floor. Now bring your knees as wide as your mat, or bring your feet as wide as your mat. Your knees will follow along. Let your arms come out to the sides into a T shape, and just start to windshield wiper your knees back and forth. Getting a little massage in the low back. And then when your knees come down towards the left the next time, let them stay there. And try to bring the inside of your right knee towards the floor. What we're looking for here is sensation in the front of the right quadricep. So if you're not getting much of it, maybe you want to bring your heel a little closer in towards your glutes, and then try pushing that knee down towards the floor and see if you feel it then. So wherever you feel that sensation of stretching in your quadricep, then you're doing it. And then bring your knees back up to center, windshield wiping them a few times back and forth. And then bring your knees over to the right and bringing the inside of the left knee towards the floor. And again, maybe bringing that left heel a little closer to you. But just relaxing into it, seeing if you can let go of any gripping when you're in this pose. Can you let that just stretch and release? And bring your knees back to center and pull your knees into your chest. Pull your knees and your feet apart and coming to happy baby. So either holding on behind your thighs or maybe reaching to the outside of your feet, pulling your knees towards your armpits. And maybe your happy baby rocks from side to side or stay still, your choice. And then we've come to our final resting pose of Shavasana. And so letting go of your feet, letting them come back to the floor. You can cover up if it's cold where you are. If you like, you can put your blanket under your knees, maybe giving a little support there, or you can put it under your head, or just stay as you are. Just letting your feet be a little wider than your hips, letting your arms come out to the sides where it's comfortable for you. If you have your glasses on, you can take them off. There's nothing you need to see. And just let your head rock from side to side a couple of times. Relax in your jaw. Let your shoulders melt below you. Soften in the heart space, in the belly. Let your legs and your arms feel heavy, like they'll make an imprint in the floor. And then scan back through your body and notice if there's any place where you're holding tension. And breathe into that space. Let that tension go. And we'll stay here for a few minutes of stillness and silence. Bring your awareness back into your body and start to wiggle your fingers and your toes. And circle your wrists and your ankles. And then take a full body stretch. Reach your arms overhead, reach through the fingertips, push through your heels. Nice big inhale, big yawn. And then bend one knee into and then the other. And let yourself roll over to the side. And push yourself all the way back up to seated. And then we'll inhale our arms up and overhead. And exhale to your heart. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, bring your hands to your forehead as a reminder of kind thoughts, to your lips for kind speech, to your heart for kind intentions. Namaste.